It's really incredible how people are made to believe the things that they believe. The average person sees an astronaut aboard the International Space Station experiencing zero gravity, and they see this experience and they automatically jump to the conclusion that this zero gravity experience that the astronaut is experiencing must be due to him being in space. And this erroneous conclusion that zero gravity is a natural product of outer space is further reinforced by fictional depictions of outer space. For instance, in your average science fiction movie that takes place in outer space, you will most definitely come across artificial gravity, or an experience when the artificial gravity breaks or is turned off, and then the characters then experience zero gravity. And evidence of this happening, evidence of people being made to believe things in this manner, can be found in all of the videos on YouTube discussing artificial gravity. These videos discuss artificial gravity as if artificial gravity is a necessary thing for space travel. While watching these videos, you can tell that this is exactly how these people came to this conclusion. You can tell they first saw astronauts aboard the ISS or elsewhere experiencing zero gravity. And then instead of researching, instead of trying to figure out, what's causing that zero gravity? What is zero gravity actually? Instead of actually doing this research, these people in their mind said, "Oh, they're in space. So, thus, zero gravity must be a product of being in outer space." And then these people see artificial gravity in a science fiction scenario and say to themselves, "Oh yes, this has to be a necessary thing. In order for us to achieve space travel, we actually have to do this." And the funniest thing is they make these videos. If you watch these videos they're fucking serious. They're seriously trying to have a real discussion about what artificial gravity is the most achievable. They talk about how, oh yeah, there's the fakest artificial gravity, which is like gravity plating. And then they're like, oh, but then there's the more realistic artificial gravity, where the station is constantly moving and it's using like centrifugal force or whatever to achieve this artificial gravity. And they're fucking there having these serious discussions. They really think that they're smart. And in reality, they're just talking out their ass and they don't even realize it. And this isn't just, this video is about that. This video is about artificial gravity in particular. But there are so many scenarios in which this same thing applies, where people don't know that they don't know. But anyway, I digress. Let me get into the video now. Let me explain how zero gravity does not exist and how NASA is totally wasting our money with this International Space Station endeavor. A total and complete waste of our money. So of course, as always, since this video is about the International Space Station, we're going to start there. We're going to start at the International Space Station, and we're going to be looking at the Wikipedia of the International Space Station under the section Scientific Research. It says, "The ISS provides a platform to conduct scientific research. Small unmanned spacecraft can provide platforms for zero gravity and exposure to space, but space stations offer a long-term environment where studies can be performed potentially for decades, combined with ready access by human researchers over periods that exceed the capabilities of manned spacecrafts." So basically, what this is saying is that the scientific research being conducted on the ISS was originally to conduct scientific research towards zero gravity and exposure to space. And, we know this because it says, small unmanned spacecraft can provide a platform for those things. But space stations offer a long-term environment where studies can be performed, potentially for decades, in those areas. In the areas of space exposure. The ISS, the purpose of it was to ready us for space travel, was to have us study things that can lead to us successfully traveling through space. The ISS Wikipedia article goes on to say, researchers are investigating the effects of the station's near-weightless environment on the evolution, development, growth, and internal processes of plants and animals. In response to some of this data, NASA wants to investigate microgravity's effect on the growth of three-dimensional human-like tissues, and the unusual protein crystals that can be formed in space. And then it goes on to say the investigation of the physics of fluids and microgravity will allow researchers to model the behavior of fluids better because of yada 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 and yada yada yada. Now the funny thing about that last part is that it says that it will allow researchers to model the behavior of fluids better and not it has allowed them. So it's just basically more hopeful promises coming from these people who are lying to us. I'm going to point out exactly why they're lying to us, and they even admit that they're lying to us in their own words. Now check this out. Oh, wait, I forgot that there's this bit of information too. So the Wikipedia article goes on to say, medical research improves knowledge about the effects of long-term space exposure on the human body, including muscle atrophy, bone loss, and fluid shift. This data will be used to determine whether lengthy human spaceflight and space colonization are feasible. As of 2006, data on bone loss and muscular atrophy suggests that there would be a significant risk of fracture and movement problems if astronauts landed on a planet after a lengthy interplanetary cruise, such as the 6-month interval required to travel to Mars. And of course, that muscular atrophy, fluid shift, and other issues with supposed spaceflight are products of zero gravity. They are side effects of living in zero gravity for so long. The problem with NASA wasting our money studying this is that zero gravity is not a product of space travel. It is not a product of going from one planet to another. Zero gravity is the product or the result of being in orbit, of orbiting a single planet. And this is even admitted on the International Space Station's Wikipedia. It says right here under microgravity, the Earth's gravity is only slightly weaker at the altitude of the International Space Station than at the surface, but objects in orbit are in a continuous state of free fall, resulting in an apparent state of weightlessness. This perceived weightlessness is disturbed by 5 separate effects. The only thing that's important here is that zero gravity doesn't exist. Okay, zero gravity is the product of being in orbit, and that's further proved, and that's further shown. And since if you guys don't like Wikipedia, here's something right from NASA: gravity on Earth versus gravity in space. You click on this article, it says this. Basically, this is a video, actually, this thing, and I'll even show you some of the video. So this NASA video segment explains why objects seem to float in space. Viewers learn that objects on board the space shuttle, as well as the shuttle itself, are in a continuous state of free fall. So that's why they appear to float. Okay, so as soon as you leave orbit, as soon as you start flying, taking off towards another planet, that free fall, that continuous free fall will end. They will experience gravity. They will experience what is universal gravity. Gravity is a universal constant. They would definitely experience the universal constant of gravity, and then as soon as they get within range of another planet, they'll experience different gravity levels depending on which planet they're near. Okay, the fact is, there's gravity in space. This idea that we need to put astronauts in orbit and study them in zero gravity in order to do space travel, it's like saying, okay, in order to swim, we have to study somebody who is flying. It's like you're never gonna fucking be able to learn how to swim that way. I mean, that might not be a good example, but I'm sure you guys understand what I mean. It is so redundant. It'll actually make sure we never achieve space travel. So I'm gonna play this video real quick. What is it? It's like let's see how long it is. It's like a minute and a half long. I'll play some of it. It's super cringy. That's actually why I want you guys to see it. And then after this video, we're going to discuss other ways that the International Space Station is wasting money. And it's not only zero gravity. What it is that they're studying the effects of space, like the radiation, in a location where they don't experience the effects of space. The International Space Station is not in a location of the atmosphere that actually experiences the same effects as like being in actual outer space. And I'm going to get to that right after this video.
In many ways, living in space is just like living at home back on Earth. and in many other ways, it's not. One big difference is how gravity seems to act differently. We all know that on Earth, if you drop a ball, gravity causes it to fall to the ground. And if you jump into the air, gravity pulls you back down. We feel the effects of Earth's gravity here in space too, but because we're all falling around the Earth, it makes it seem like we and everything else around us are floating. It's the same thing that's happening to my friend on this trampoline. Each time he goes up, he falls back towards the ground. Now watch what happens when he lets go of the ball. It falls too, but because they're falling together, the ball seems to him like it's floating. On the shuttle, we are falling in an endless circle around the Earth. So if you let go of something in space, it doesn't fall to the floor because the floor is falling too. And if you jump, you won't come back down the way you do on the ground. Can you think of some ways that this could make living in space different from living on Earth?
Yeah, that was really fucking cringy. But I'm going to hurry through this last portion because I see this video is already like nearing 20 minutes long. So this next portion, what I'm going to do this next portion, I'm going to show that where the International Space Station is, where it's trying to study the effects of space, is not even almost comparable to outer space. It's like fucking, they might as well be under fucking water trying to study the effects of outer space, and you'll see why right now. So here we go. So this says the International Space Station orbits at 400 kilometers. That's like 170 miles, whatever. So the thermosphere ends at 690 kilometers. So the International Space Station is inside the thermosphere. Okay, then it goes on to say, the exact altitude of the transition into outer space is not well defined, but it is generally understood to exist somewhere in the exosphere. Therefore, we can comfortably say that the International Space Station orbits within the atmosphere because it resides in the thermosphere, which is below the exosphere. Now this says that, but what else you're going to find is you're going to find this. There is no exact place where Earth's atmosphere ends and space begins. The commonly accepted end of Earth's atmosphere falls within the thermosphere at 62 miles, 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface. This commonly accepted boundary is called the Kármán line. Now, fortunately, I continue my research, and I came across this NASA article, which is titled, "Where Does the Earth's Atmosphere Come to an End?" I'm not going to read all of this because, as I said, I'm going to hurry through this because the video's already too long. The only interesting thing about this, of course there's other interesting stuff, but the most interesting thing about this article is that it says, at the bottom of this first paragraph, at 200 kilometers, remember the second guy said that the outer space begins at 100 kilometers. So at 200 kilometers, the density of the atmosphere itself is 10 billion atoms per cubic centimeter, or whatever that CC stands for. So it is a long way from the conditions we associate with interplanetary space at 10 to 100 atoms cubic centimeters. So check that out. That's the difference, okay? So at 200 kilometers, 10 billion atoms versus interplanetary space is 100, is 10 to 100 atoms. You can also find that some people will say that, in interplanetary space and outer space, it could go up to 1,000 atoms. Nowhere near 10 billion atoms that you find at the fucking 200 kilometer mark in our atmosphere. So right there, I will say that, no, it's, where the International Space Station is, we are not, actually, that's right, there's one more thing I want to add to this, and that is the magnetosphere. So the magnetosphere plays a huge role in deflecting solar radiation, specifically the solar wind. So where does the magnetosphere go out to? Okay, so according to this was another NASA article, the magnetosphere, our shield in space, the Earth-Sun battle. According to this, in the direction facing the sun, the magnetosphere extends about 10 Earth radii, or about 65,000 kilometers, 40,000 miles upwind toward the sun. Okay? So you got a huge swath of the magnetosphere. Okay? So that's 40,000 miles of the magnetosphere, and the International Space Station is, 400 kilometers up? That's it? 170 miles up? That's it? Okay, so clearly the International Space Station is not even almost experiencing what a person would experience in outer space. If you go back to the Wikipedia of the International Space Station, it says this in the purpose. According to the original memorandum of understanding between NASA and some asshole whose name I can't pronounce, what is that? Rosavecosmos? Some asshole, the International Space Station was intended to be a laboratory, observatory, and factory in low Earth orbit. It was also planned to provide transportation, maintenance, and act as a staging base for possible future missions to the Moon, Mars, and asteroids. In the 2010 United States National Space Policy, the International Space Station was given additional roles of serving commercial, diplomatic, and educational/indoctrinational purposes. Of course, I added the indoctrination. And that's exactly what it is. It's a commercial and a diplomatic thing. And of course, an indoctrinating thing. That's entirely what it is. And, diplomatic diplomacy, look into that definition, okay? So, hope this video made you realize that the International Space Station is a complete waste of money. And I'll just say like, comment, subscribe, share the video. And if not, that's cool, don't worry. I'm still going to make videos. You guys take it easy. I'll see you in the next one.